and welcome to the first ever episode of Be Better Networking. Folks, we're going to try something new. We figured with my network and the people's networks that are out there that are going to be coming on the show, we could get people who are looking for jobs in the facilities management, construction management industry out to the networks. So I'm happy to say a good friend of mine, a long friend of mine, Kate Turner, has agreed to be the first ever Be Better Networking participant, and we want to welcome Kate on. So, Kate, thanks for being here, and let's make this fun.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
So, what we're trying to do here is just get you out there, Kate, get you in front of people, because the interviewing process. There's recruiters, there's people that are headhunters, there's openings, but like even if you're scouring with the best of all three of those, someone may be overlooking these job openings. They may not see the one that you're looking for that's the perfect match for you. So we figure, some people are going to see the video out there on LinkedIn. So what are you looking for, Kate? What are you trying to do?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much. I've also, in my entire career, the best connections have and the best opportunities have always come through vendor networking. So I think that this is a perfect opportunity. So I am currently a senior manager for construction management. I work for a consulting group. So I'm currently working freelance, and I provide full owner's rep. Services from real estate and site selection through construction and ongoing operations and maintenance. And I'm just looking to get back into a salaried full time role versus working freelance. So I'm looking for a senior manager or a director level role as I've been in the industry now for 10 years.
Talk about where you were for the 10 years, like what other companies you worked for and all the stuff you did.
Yeah, absolutely. So I studied civil engineering and initially was very interested in construction management on a large scale, like infrastructure construction management for municipalities, for local governments. And I did that for a couple of years. I worked as a civil engineer and was on my way to getting my PE. And I was quite young, and some reverberations from that 2008 crisis hit, and things were reset. A bunch of young engineers were let go, and I had this opportunity to kind of reset what my career was and what direction it was headed. And I decided to work retail in a store to just give myself a little bit of a schedule so that I wasn't just at home flailing, wondering what my next steps were going to be. And initially the idea was just to give myself a little bit of structure for the summer. And so I became a store manager at a J. Crew in Washington, D.C., and I absolutely loved it. I ended up working there for about a year and a half. I enjoyed the customer experience. I enjoyed working in the store. And J. Crew had an opportunity to move up to their corporate office in New York. And so that's when I did that. And I initially started as a facilities coordinator, worked my way through facilities management, and eventually through real estate and construction management. Throughout that, I've worked for a number of brands, J. Crew obviously being one, Suit Supply, Glossier. I've worked in cosmetics, in electronics, in apparel. I've also done some industrial and commercial warehouse development as well, in addition to just customer-facing retail.
Wow. I mean, you've run the whole gamut of basically the retail and construction background for facilities, right? So I love it. So let's talk about, you kind of touched on what drew you to this field, right? So,
I think that something that I really like to hone in on that I think is really important is because of my kind of unique background, I can speak the language between designers and architects and the vendors that actually execute the work that they design. I liked working on the customer facing side of the business, and I'm focused on the customer experience and making sure that anyone who's coming in and out of that space feels the way that they're supposed to feel as they're in that space. And oftentimes that can get lost in translation when you're working with general contractors and engineers and working with the city and permitting. You can lose some of what your intended design goals are. And so I really have worked hard to be successful in that niche and speak both languages fluently.
And that's, I mean, super important, right? Because you got the design team. I remember when I worked at Nine West, the design team was like up on the fourth floor, and they drew all the pretty blueprints. And then it got to the construction team, and it was like we were down on the first floor, and we were just like, get it done by opening day, right? That's all that mattered. So if we had to cut some corners or some stuff got lost, we didn't really care. But to your point, then we would get hammered at the end when we were doing the punch list. Like, this is not what it's supposed to look like. This wall is off by a shade of green, right? So you can speak the language, and that's very important. I love it. So, what is the long term career goal? Where do you want to go?
I would really love to be working for a brand that I would also like to be a consumer of. I think that it's just fun and motivating to be working in an environment where you understand uh, who the customer is and what the customer intent is. And I'd like to own a department and be responsible for the brick and mortar spaces for a retailer and own that from beginning to end.
Perfect. I think anyone that doesn't hire you to do this is crazy. So I think you're well on your way. So let's talk about that though. You want to own a department, right? So then let's talk about how you create motivation for yourself and your team when you are owning that department.
Yeah, so I think at the end of the day, anyone who is in this specific industry, whether you're working with restaurants or retail or even like internal clients, if you're an office services person, and at the end of the day, our role is to make sure that these spaces are safe and functional, but also enjoyable, right? And so that is where I find my motivation to kind of get up every day and do what I'm doing is that the intended goal is to make someone's experience better. And if I can figure out any way to do that, whether that is value engineering something that still has the desired design intent, but can execute it more efficiently, that's really important to me. That's a huge win. And so that's the kind of the mindset that I look at in order to be successful.
Awesome. So we've talked about what your goals are. We've talked about how you create motivation for the team and yourself. So last two questions for you, and I'm going to ask them kind of in one. What inspires you, and what advice do you have for someone that's new to the industry that's looking to get into the industry?
Yeah. So even in my personal life, I really like to curate experiences and provide people with joy. I like to entertain and have people over and put together a dinner party and think about all of the things that are integral to making sure that when someone is in my space, they feel comfortable and warm and welcomed. And that's a critical part of being successful at this job on the day to day is how is the customer, if I'm in their shoes, how are they experiencing this? And how is that experience universal across all of our spaces? Even if they're in a different location, they're in a different setting, that, you know, a space in Seattle feels, evokes the same feeling that one in Miami does. And so that's the personal factor that drives me there. And then in terms of advice for someone who is interested in getting in this industry is keeping that in mind that your ultimate goal is an enjoyable customer experience. Again, that's for an internal or external client. When we make that happen, that is such a huge win. Like if I'm good at my job, that means that someone else can be better at theirs and it can enjoy going into their space, their whatever they are doing with their day. And that's a huge win. So keeping that in mind has been the best piece of advice I think that I could give someone.
Awesome. Kate, this has been awesome. And thank you for
Thank you
coming
so
on.
much. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. And good to see you.
Good to see you as well. And anyone else that sees this video, if you're looking, send in an email to me and we will get you on the show. Have a great day.